What's going on, bottom line viewers? It's Mitch here with your week number 10 NFL review, reviewing, raving, recapping, and of course, it wouldn't be a bottom line without the ranting. Week number 10 in the NFL. Lot happened, lot of awesome games. Big matchups, big, decisive, standings changing matchups and moments this week. A lot was determined this week in the NFL, AFC, NFC, and some shakeup in the standings for sure. We are going to discuss the biggest stories in the NFL, the best games of the week, and the moments that I think gave us something to discuss in the NFL this week in week number 10. Before I get started, before I start the show and talk about my favorite moments this week, the big games, the key players, the biggest moments, make sure you do Gronk spike that like button, and don't forget to subscribe to the Bottom Line View for more NFL bottom line reviews each and every week. Here on the channel, every single Monday, Tuesday, I do a review of the NFL, the week that was. We talk about the biggest players. We talk about the biggest moments. We talk about the storylines coming out of the week and what we learned from them and what we can learn from them moving forward. Also, comment your questions. Comment your opinion in the comment section, whether it is live or it is after the fact, watching this maybe tomorrow. Let me know in the comments below what you thought of week number 10 and what you learned from week number 10. Which team did you learn about? What player really did you learn about? Let me know in the comment section below. All right, so week number 10 over with. We're one step closer to getting towards the playoffs already. I know it's pretty insane. It's pretty incredible. But yeah, that's where we're at, guys. We are almost towards January, and we're almost dealing with looking at the matchups for the players and who is going to be key towards that playoff conversation. So let's start off, as we do each and every NFL week, each and every NFL review, with the top 10 teams in the NFL exclusively released on Instagram. If you want to get it earlier than anyone else, make sure you do follow the Bottom Line View Instagram to get Ultra's top 10. Let's take a look at who Ultra has as his top 10 teams, and let's critique it, because I have kind of a problem with it this week. I'm not a huge fan of what he brought to the table here for his top 10, but hey, it's his opinion. So let's take a look. So for Ultra, he has at number 1 still the Kansas City Chiefs, with good reason. The Kansas City Chiefs are the best team in football, in my opinion. They are the Super Bowl champions. They have just one loss to a division rival, and they have been very consistent. And even when they haven't played their best, they've been able to pick up the wins. They are, as Ric Flair would say, before you can be the man, you got to beat the man. So the Kansas City Chiefs are the man. They are at the top of the mountain. And before somebody knocks them off, that's actually in the conversation for contention, I can't move them off number 1. And I agree with Ultra to have the Chiefs as the number 1 team. If you do not have the Chiefs as the number 1 team, you might have the Pittsburgh Steelers as the number 1 team, who are currently undefeated. The Steelers and Chiefs have not played each other, so it gives reason for why the Chiefs would be number 1. The Steelers, they have beat some pretty good teams. They've beat the Titans. They've beat the Ravens. They've beat a fair amount of okay teams. They haven't played a Chiefs yet. All right, they haven't played the Saints. They haven't played the Bucks. They haven't played the Packers, who are our top 5. So there is reason to question the Steelers. But what you cannot question is that they are a very well-rounded team with great balance, a fantastic front seven, a very savvy veteran quarterback, and very good coaching. The Steelers, in a league with a lot of flawed teams, are perhaps the least flawed team in football. You could certainly argue that. At number 3, the New Orleans Saints. The Saints, they coming off a big win over the Bucs, were able to maintain that performance versus San Francisco. Now, it started off, I believe it was 10-10, so it was a little rough at the beginning, took them a little time to get into it, but eventually they pulled away. They proved to us on Sunday that they could come off a big win and continue that great quality performance. So the Saints, they may be missing Drew Brees for a couple of weeks. We'll see how they are able to get through that, but their defense is playing much better, specifically in the front. Secondary is getting a little bit better with time as well. The offense with Michael Thomas back is back in rhythm. So the Saints do deserve to be the top-ranked NFC team because they have swept our number 4 team, the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. I do believe that the Bucs are probably a worse matchup for the Packers than the Saints are. They're probably a worse matchup for the rest of the NFC. But for whatever reason, as we've seen twice now, the Saints, they have outdone the Buccaneers. So you have to give them a respect to put them as a top NFC team. Now the Bucs, if the Steelers are not the most balanced team, it's probably the Bucs. The Bucs bounced back this week in a big way. Tom Brady, 4 total touchdowns, 1 rushing, 3 passing. Antonio Brown, Gronk, Chris Godwin, Mike Evans, all over 50 yards. Okay, Mike Evans looked his healthiest he has looked in a very long time. And the defense got back on track last week with only allowing under 40 yards to a good Carolina offense in that second half where they really pulled away. So the Bucs looked like an elite team on Sunday once again. Number 5, the Green Bay Packers. The Packers, Aaron Rodgers, Devontae Adams, Aaron Jones, a very hard, difficult offense to contend with, to contain, because they can beat you running, they can beat you passing. The defense, though, highly questionable, can be taken advantage of. Their pass rush has not come through this season, but they're still a good team, and they have proved to us, I believe, that they can beat the bad teams in the league with consistency. And there are not a lot of teams that can actually do that. I'm going to be honest with you. At number 6, the Baltimore Ravens. They had a slip up this week. They lost to the Patriots in New England on Sunday night versus Bill Belichick and Cam Newton. That happens to people. That happens. It's happened many times before with the Patriots. Even if they're not as talented as you, can come in and they can upset you. That's totally possible. For the Ravens, they found a bad matchup in New England. This week, they're going to have to bounce back versus a team that has been a bad matchup for them in the past. I believe they do play the Titans, so that's going to be a tough game for them. But the Ravens, they've shown that they are flawed, that they are not truly on the Steelers or Chiefs level in the AFC. I do believe they are truly a level below them, and alongside them is the Bills, who are also extremely flawed. Now, personally, I would have the Bills ahead of the Ravens. The Bills lost an extremely fluky game to the Cardinals that they should have won, and it was to a good team who has a positive record in the NFC. So, yeah, okay, the Cardinals were favored to win the game, right? But Buffalo should have won the game. They didn't, so ultimately it will result in an L. The reason I would have the Bills ahead of the Ravens is because I thought the Patriots actually kind of dominated the Ravens. Well, like I said, the Bills should have beat the Cardinals, but the Bills are a better passing team than a majority of the NFL. There are not many teams that can beat the Bills in terms of pure head-to-head passing the football in the NFL right now. The Bills, Josh Allen, Stephon Diggs, Cole Beasley, these guys are on fire, and they can go toe-to-toe with any offense in the league. So because the Ravens lack that offensive prowess in terms of passing the ball, I'd have the Bills ahead of the Ravens personally, but I would stick with the Ravens at number 7 ahead of number 8, Miami. I'm still not a huge believer in Miami. Now, Durkant's going to call me a hater, whatever. I think the Dolphins are a playoff team. I think they're like a team that gets in, but I don't think they're going to do any sort of damage. I like their defense quite a bit. I like their coaching quite a bit. They're a nice story, but are they a contender? No. The Dolphins, they had another quality win. I mean, they beat the Chargers, who are not a good team, but have been playing teams competitively. So you got to give them credit for that. It could have been a down spot for them, but they didn't let that slip up and happen, and they were able to pick up the win. We'll see how they do. I don't know how many of the elite AFC teams they actually play going forward, but I would like to see them play one of these teams because I want to see how they can actually fare come playoff time. Because now that we've determined that the Dolphins are actually a solid team, I want to see how they do versus the elite in the NFL, not just the bad teams or the okay teams, because we've established that they can beat those teams. At number 9, the LA Rams. The Rams I like because they're balanced. I am a guy that values defense. I am a guy that values balance. I am a guy that values coaching. And the Rams are balanced. They can run the ball. They can pass the ball. They can coach. They can play defense. They can stop the run. They can stop the pass. The Rams are probably, with the Bucs and the Saints, in the top 3 in terms of balance. They can score. They can stop you from scoring. And they can outcoach you. And that's where I would put them in that top 3 in the NFC. They are more well-balanced than the Packers. But the thing with the Rams is Jared Goff. I think it's Jared Goff. A lot of it, Jared Goff is not on the level of Rodgers. He's not on the level of Brady. He's not even on the level of Breeze. I would put him levels below those 3 guys. So when comparing them to the top 3 of the NFC, and then you get into, okay, they beat Seattle. Seattle's extremely flawed. They're really Russell Wilson, a good passing attack, and not much else. They were able to out-talent and out-scheme the Seahawks. But can they do that to Tampa Bay? Can they do that to New Orleans? I don't really think so. They have a really underrated defense, which we're going to get to in this show. So I like the Rams, but I think their ceiling is capped. They have some really quality players, but they do have deceptive flaws, like minor flaws, and their quarterback being just average does hold them back from being a truly really good team. When the Rams went to the Super Bowl, their roster might have been the best in the league, and I simply don't think that's the case right now. And then at number 10, we have, of course, the Las Vegas Raiders. Now, I don't know if I'd have these final 3 teams in my top 10 like Ultra did. He had the Raiders at number 10. He had the Rams in there. He had the Dolphins in there. I personally, I know that the Dolphins beat the Rams, but that was a matchup problem, I believe, for the Rams. Now, maybe I could be wrong here. I think those 2 teams are interchangeable. I actually think every team after 6 is interchangeable. I think the top 6 is top 7 is pretty clear to me. I think the Cardinals should be in this top 10 somewhere. I think the Seahawks probably are number 11, maybe squeak into the top 10. I really see the NFL is a clear top 4. I think the top 4 right now is clearly the Chiefs, the Steelers in the AFC, and in the NFC, the Bucs and the Saints. Those are the top 4. That would be the AFC and NFC championship as of week 10. After that, I think you slot in the Packers right underneath those teams, and then you kind of have an up in the air decision on your hands. Like, there's probably a good 13, 14 teams that you could argue could make it from number 8 to number 10. So, really, I think the NFL is, I've said it, I don't think the NFL is good right now. I don't think there's a lot of quality teams. That's what I mean by it's not good. The product on the television is entertaining. It's given us great amusement and entertainment, but it's not, I don't think I see any all-time great teams or any teams that really stand out above the rest. This is a clearly wide open in NFL this year, and especially in that mid-range of teams from the 15th best team to the 8th best team. It's very clear who the top 4 are, but past that point, it's really just completely, I have no idea. So week in, week out, that is going to change. And I bet you, I could guarantee anything that Ultra's top 10 will change at the bottom of that top 10 next week. It's absolutely guaranteed the way the NFL is in 2020. So let's get to our first topic of the show, guys. If you haven't already, make sure you do Gronk spike that like button. It really helps the channel. It helps other people, other NFL fans find this channel and really find this video, because this is a big video. I love this show. I'm going to be honest with you. This is my new favorite show on the channel. All right. I love this show. I love coming on here and just ranting about stuff. It's a lot of fun to me. So If you guys like this show as well, make sure you do leave a like and so show support for me and the channel and allow other NFL fans to have fun in the chat as well. And if you haven't already, do subscribe to the channel for more NFL content. All right, so let's take a look at that first subject on the show today. So we have the Patriots and the Ravens. So people were disappointed that I didn't do a live reactions to the video or to the game, not the video, to the game. So I didn't do a live reactions to the Sunday night football game between the Patriots and the Ravens. With good reason. I was really tired, so I didn't really have the energy to put forth an actual entertaining stream. So that was number one. Number two, I was thinking that I was messing with the mojo of my teams when I stream, okay? I've noticed a trend that more often than not, I guarantee you over the past 2 seasons, if you looked at the record of the Patriots, and we'll throw in the Bucks as well, when I stream their game, it is negative. I guarantee you that. So in the back of my mind, while I didn't feel like streaming just from a physical standpoint, I didn't feel like streaming from a mental standpoint because I was throwing off the mojo of my club. So I wanted to just see what would happen if I throw it back, old school, sit on the couch, watch the game, and relax. So what happens? The Patriots upset the Baltimore Ravens. I'm not going to say that I saw this coming. I didn't because I picked the Ravens. Although I also dramatically said that the Patriots could not score a point because I wanted to come in as the underdog. So just to let you know, I am probably going to pick the other team every week just because I'm going with the Patriots are the underdogs this year. All right? Every time they play a team that they should lose to, I'm picking the other team. I'm just letting you know right now, okay? I am not messing with the underdog mojo. But secretly, I knew the Patriots, their season was on the line. Their backs were against the wall. They needed to make something happen. And if you've been watching the Ravens recently this season, you would see that they are an extremely flawed team. And I knew that if Belichick could come out with a good game plan on Sunday night, that they would be able to maintain competitive throughout the 4 quarters. They could be competitive for 4 quarters. I didn't think they would win, but I thought the game would be close. But what we actually saw on Sunday Night Football was that this game was not just competitive, but actually New England was kind of dominant, especially in the second to third quarter. New England was running the ball. New England was establishing physical dominance at the line of scrimmage. They were stuffing Lamar Jackson. They were causing pressure with Chase Winovich off the edge. Kyle Duggar was, all over the place. The secondary, J.C. Jackson with a big interception. Of course, Devin McCourty playing very well. On the offense, Cam Newton was very efficient through the passing game. Even guys at receiver, tight end were making plays like Jacoby Myers. That incredible pinpoint throw, the former quarterback. That was one of the highlights of the year. But overall, what I saw from New England, because I already made a video on this, I don't want to go too deep into it. But what we saw was the Patriots found their identity. They found their formula of what they can do to be successful in 2020. And what that is being a power throwback football team. And part of that, the reason it wasn't working and wasn't equating to W's the last couple of weeks was they were not able to effectively stop the run over the last couple of weeks. So it was allowing other teams to establish that physical dominance. But in this game versus the Ravens, they actually adequately stopped the run. I'm not going to say it was perfection, but they did a good job versus one of the best running teams in the league at stuffing what they were doing and forcing Lamar Jackson and this weak receiving corps to beat them through the air, and they weren't having it, especially in the rain in the third and fourth quarter. The Patriots were able to run that ball. They were able to out-physical, out-Baltimore, and that's something that not a lot of teams can do in any season. Never mind this season, last season of Baltimore, but throughout their history, they have been a franchise built on physicality, and New England out-physicaled them. So, that is their formula. Run the ball with Damian Harris, Rex Burkhead. Maybe Sony comes back and helps in that regard. Sprinkle in play action, sprinkle in the pass, but don't rely on it. Get in manageable third downs if you get to third down. Use the creative mind of Josh McDaniels in the passing game, in the screen game. Maybe you throw a trick play in there once in a while. But as long as this defense, this is the key to this team. If this team is going to bounce back and be relevant down the stretch, they will need to be better on first and second down, which they were versus Baltimore. Baltimore, this was the first time ever with Lamar Jackson that the last 2 years, I believe, they have been held under 20 points as an offense. This was the first team to do so, New England. So, what they need to do down the stretch is continue to be better on early downs on defense, because we know that this New England defense can be dominant if you force them into passing situations. And if New England gets that game script going, they're going to be tough for any team to beat. So that's what we saw last night. It wasn't as much that the Ravens suck. It wasn't as much that the Ravens are overrated, which might be true. I don't think they suck, but they might be overrated. We'll get to that. But New England found a formula that, one, works versus the Ravens, and two, is what's going to work for them and give any team a tough time. That is what we saw. All right. Now, transferring that conversation into the next topic, the Patriots, can they actually make the playoffs? Like, logically, logistically, can this actually happen? So I'm going to pull up my standings right now and just take a look at what I think could take place over the next part of the Patriots schedule. Now, there's many people that are going to say, you're stupid, you're crazy, you're out of your mind, this cannot happen. All right? They're 4-5, so they have played 9 games. Okay? 9 games. That means that there are still how many games left? 7? 7 games left. There is basically another half of a season left in the NFL this year, in 2020. New England's schedule, okay? So who did they play in the first half? Let's first compare it with what they played in the first half to what they played in the second half. In the first half, they played a playoff team in Miami, who they beat in the first week. I understand it was week 1, but they dominated that game pretty convincingly and won that game. All right? They lost to Seattle, who a lot of people until last week felt had the MVP of the NFL and are also right now a playoff team sitting at 6-3. They lost to them on the 1-yard line. Everybody saw it on Sunday Night Football. All right? Then they play another playoff team. So far through 3 weeks, 3 playoff teams in a row. Miami, Seattle, the Raiders. They beat the Raiders convincingly by 16 points. Then Cam gets COVID. They play the Chiefs. They lose to the Chiefs in a game that a lot of people felt if Cam plays, they win that game. But he didn't play. They lost the game. Brian Hoyer was horrendous. They lost. Whatever. They lost to the Chiefs, the best team in football. Okay. They lose to the Broncos in an ugly game. They lose to a healthy 49ers with Kyle Shanahan just with a storm. And that's where I said they can't stop the run. They can't stop me stopping the run or running the ball. Then they lost to another playoff team in Buffalo on, again, the last play of the game, where they were on a drive within the red zone, the 20-yard line, to score versus another playoff team in Buffalo. Then they beat the Jets. Then they beat the Ravens. So what we're looking at here is that they played 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 playoff teams, 6 playoff teams, 6. Okay, so they've played 9 games. They played 6 playoff teams, and they lost to a healthy 49ers, which is like basically a playoff team. So They played 7 quality teams. They actually lost to a team that isn't quality, the Broncos. All right? And they got one game, one easy opponent in the Jets. So all of their wins are actually quality wins. I don't know this to be a fact, but if you looked at who has beat the most winning teams in the league, I think New England is in the top 3. I won't guarantee it, but if you look that up, I'm pretty sure that's the case. So New England's 4-5. They've had some rough spots. They're a team that needs to go a certain way to win. But they're going to be competitive. Who do they play the rest of the season? They play a Texans team with 2 wins. They play the Cardinals, who are good, but definitely beatable, and actually a lot like the Bills. The Chargers, who suck. The Rams, who are good, okay? But again, they're not the Chiefs. They're not, I wouldn't say they're the Ravens. I wouldn't, they're like along the lines of a decent, the Raiders, a Seahawks. They've played these kind of teams before. The Bills, again, at home this time, and they play the Dolphins and the Jets. So they have 3 divisional games. If they go 2-1 there, they got a shot. Then the rest of the games, LA back-to-back. They'll be staying in LA probably for that stretch. They can at least beat the Chargers. If I'm looking at this schedule, I think they beat the Texans. I think they could beat the Cardinals. I wouldn't be surprised by that. But that's an either way game. They'll beat the Chargers. They'll have a tough time with the Rams from an offensive perspective because the Rams can stop the run pretty well. They're physical up front, and they got a quality defense, as we're going to discuss in a second. But I think Jared Goff playing Belichick is a total mismatch, as we've seen in the past, and as we saw this year with Brian Flores. So I think New England could win a slugfest game there on Monday night. That is or Thursday night. That's a key game. But assuming they beat the Texans, Chargers, and say they win 2 of the 3 games versus the AFC East, that's 5 more wins, which that would mean they're 9-7, okay? And that's assuming they would lose to the Cardinals and the Rams and a team in the AFC East. So that's assuming they're losing 3 games. That is very doable. 9-7 is super doable in this league right now, considering the inconsistencies of these teams and the flaws of these teams. Looking at the AFC, Buffalo's 7-3, Miami 6-3, the Steelers are going to make it, the Ravens are 6-3, the Browns are 6-3. I don't know what their schedules are like. The Colts are 6-3, Titans are 6-3, Raiders are 6-3. So New England is the 9th seed in the AFC right now. So they would basically have to outperform a few teams. Now, the Raiders have a difficult schedule down the stretch. In my opinion, they play the Chiefs this week. They play the Colts. They play the Dolphins. And I don't think it's easy at Atlanta or for them playing the Chargers because that's a divisional opponent. So the Raiders may slip a bit. I expect the Browns to slip. I don't know if they'll actually have an easy time with the Eagles. They play the Titans, Ravens, Giants, Steelers, who are all going to be in the playoff race. The Titans are slipping and playing worse football. So there's certainly an opportunity for the Patriots to squeak in there, especially if there's 8 playoff teams. So I wouldn't necessarily count them out. Now, from a math perspective, it does seem like it's going to be difficult. But they basically hold their own destiny in their hands. If they can continue to play consistent football the way they played on Sunday night, I think they can actually do it. So we'll have to see. We'll have to let it play out week by week. Start with this Texans win. But when I look at this schedule, it is certainly up in the air because I don't think it's really that difficult. I think you're playing a lot of teams that are average to pretty good, that are extremely flawed, just like you are. So Patriots to the playoffs. I'm not going to say yes. I'm not going to say no. I'm not going to be hot takey here just for the sake to be hot takey. But I think they got a good chance. If I had to give a percentage, I'm going to say like 48% just because the teams ahead of them are like 2 games ahead of them because they're 4-5. And a lot of their games Like, there's still 7 games left for every team. I mean, I could do this example for just look at a lot of teams. And the AFC is kind of weird because it's super top heavy. There's like no teams other than New England that are 4-5. The NFC, right? Like a Detroit or a Minnesota, they could win. They could make it. Their destiny is in their hands. If they play good football, right, they can make it. I mean, I'm not going to totally rule it out, but it's New England. It's Bill Belichick. It's Cam Newton, and I'm not ruling them out. All right, the Ravens. Are the Ravens in trouble? This is a big question for the AFC. I don't think the Ravens, based on what I've seen, not just versus New England, because I don't think we should overreact to one game ever, no matter the result, but it's stacking up at this point. Like, it's becoming very, very concerning. The Ravens are extremely, extremely flawed for such a good roster. They have really a bad offensive line. Their offensive line is not performing well. Their best offensive lineman is injured. Lamar Jackson has been solid, but not spectacular, which he was last year, to overcome it. The wide receiver play is not good. Marquise Brown has been an extreme disappointment. Marquise Brown, huge disappointment. Doesn't even deserve the Hollywood nickname right now. Mark Andrews, if he's your number one threat, it's not a threat to a defense. You need more than him. I mean, nobody's scared of Willie Snead, okay? The run game is okay. It's good, but it's not all-time special the way it was last year. So they're forced into some more awkward positions from a passing perspective. Just the fact that their passing game is so bad is very concerning. And their defense, they're missing a couple guys. You know, like Calais Campbell's a big loss. If they have him, they might even beat the Patriots, I think, because that helps them versus the run. But without him, they are getting gashed on the ground on a per-carry basis. And their pass defense is really good, but I just feel like everyone kind of saw what the Ravens were last year, and now people and teams are adjusting to what the Ravens showed what they were last year, and they didn't really change anything. Now, I think the people that were banking on the Ravens this year was seeing that they would be better because they would evolve, not necessarily because they would stay the same. And the problem in the NFL, you're always going to lose if you stay the same. And that's exactly what the Ravens have done. They have not added a layer to their passing game. They have not added a layer to their running game. They have not added a layer to their defensive scheme, where they're very blitz reliant, they're very aggressive, and teams can take advantage of that with the right personnel. So the Ravens have the flaws they had last year, except now teams know how to defend what they're great at, and then they don't have the same personnel. They don't have as great of tight end play, all right? Their offensive line is missing a Hall of Famer and an All-Pro. Their running backs, Mark Ingram isn't playing like a beast he was last year. The defense, secondary is still great. Front seven has more talent, but it's been injured. Injuries happen in the NFL. So the Ravens are a good team. I think if they can get a passing game going, they'll be a tough out. But they have so many clearly identifiable flaws that are really hard to overcome. It's not like their flaws are meaningless areas of the game. Like, their flaws are their punter is like subpar. Like, their flaws are that, okay, their run blocking isn't great. Like, I'd rather be a team like the Bills, who are very flawed, but in the opposite way. Okay, the Bills, they can't really run the ball. They can't really stop the run. But the Bills can pass the ball so they can score more points, okay? They're a better offense than the Ravens. This is the fundamental conversation of the NFL right now. If I was good in any area, I would like to be good passing and stopping the pass. the Ravens are bad at passing the ball. Like, not just bad, but like really bad. And I don't think it's necessarily Lamar Jackson's fault. Like last year, they were kind of average. They were actually extremely efficient in this area. They were really good in this area. But when you're such a bad passing team, and then your running game isn't as good or not as creative, and teams can take advantage of you and stop what you've been doing, like with New England, their offensive line is so good that it doesn't matter if you know they're running to the left because they can still block you. But the Ravens, it's not the same, even though they have Lamar Jackson. So it's kind of an interesting conversation of like, the Ravens expected to be as dominant as they were last year, rolling out the same scheme without adjustments and losing good players. Like, that's not a thing that can actually exist in the NFL. That just doesn't happen. So that is what I see in the Ravens. And this isn't just from one game. I saw this in the Colts game. I've seen this in games even versus like Washington. We saw this. Like in games where they dominated on the scoreboard, where it wasn't necessarily a dominant win. So the Ravens, like, I'm not trying to bash the Ravens. I'm just putting it out there. They're a good team. But to me, I've said this before in weeks past, they are no longer an elite team. They have crossed the line from they are guaranteed top 5 contender to, okay, now officially they are like top 5 in the AFC, not top 2, okay? And I'm just kind of disappointed because I have respect for Harbaugh. I have respect for the Ravens. I think they're an extremely intelligent franchise. I think they are one of the best run teams in the NFL from season to season over the past decade, over the past 20 years. They have been at the top of drafting. They have been one of the smartest teams in acquisitions and trades. They have been one of the best teams in terms of roster talent every year. And they are always tough. And they bring a brand of football that's difficult to deal with. But this year, I'm disappointed with how they've adjusted. Last year, they adjusted phenomenally, and the NFL didn't have an answer until they fell on their face. This year, everyone's had the answers, and their talent has not been able to overcome that. And that's the problem. That's the problem. They need to go back to the drawing board with the offensive approach, with the defensive approach, and add layers to their game. Just like we had the same conversation with Sean McVay and the Rams last year, and that's where the Ravens are at right now. All right. There was a game, which we're going to get to, but I first want to start with this conversation. The Miami Dolphins, the Buffalo Bills. So we just discussed the New England Patriots as a team that I still think can make a run at the playoffs. The Dolphins and the Bills are the top teams in the AFC East right now. They both have, I think, 3 losses. Who is better? This is a good conversation. Can the Dolphins win the division? Yes. Do I think the Dolphins are a bigger threat in the playoffs? No. It's really interesting because I think the Dolphins, they're competitive, they're consistent, they have a good game plan, they approach the game in a correct fashion, intelligently, from okay, this is what we want to do, and we're going to stick to it. We're going to build our team a certain way, and this is how we're going to play. This is what I like about the Dolphins. They are very good at play calling. I think their coaching has been very, very, very good this year. Like on both sides of the ball. Not just Flores, but also in terms of offensively. They just play an efficient brand of football. I think both of these teams do, actually. I think Brian Daboll, with what he does with the Bills, is extremely good. What McDermott does on the defense has been lacking, but typically it's pretty damn good. I think the difference between the two teams is the quarterback right now. I think Allen, I'm going to take 10 times out of 10 over Tua. Not to say Tua's played bad. People think I hate Tua because I rated him low in the draft. Whatever. Tua is a rookie quarterback. I'm not going to put a rookie quarterback over a guy that's considered MVP candidate. Okay? Josh Allen is elite, borderline elite quarterback. He's at least top 10. And the Bills' passing attack is probably the second best in the NFL, behind the Chiefs. I don't think I'm missing anyone there that I would put ahead of the Bills. I don't think so. Maybe the Bucks, but I don't know. The Bills are a really, really good passing attack. And like I said a little bit earlier, that passing game is going to get you and put you in games because they are an elite offense because of it. The Bills do have flaws, but I do expect the Bills, when they get healthier on defense, to be better on defense. I do think we wouldn't be having this conversation if Kyler Murray doesn't complete a miracle Hail Mary, because I think the Bills would only have 2 losses. It's not to say the Bills are some elite team. They're not. They're a good team. They're a fine team. They're not an all-timer team, but they're a solid team. The Dolphins, they win on special teams, which is perhaps the most underrated thing I've seen anyone talk about. The Dolphins have a really good special teams. Really good. Their defense is phenomenal. It's probably top 5. Their offense has been playing better as of late. They don't have an extremely great rushing attack. They don't have a heck of a lot of weapons. Their offensive line is kind of below average. But the defense, the special teams, the coaching is what's allowing them to be an above 500 team. That, when I look at the talent and when I compare them to other elite teams, they're not quite on the level yet, which they could be in a year or two, but they're not there yet. So I think the Dolphins are, again, a good story, a fun team to watch. They have good aspects to them, but I just think the way the Bills are built and the way these two teams will be hitting their stride at the end of the season, the Bills will ultimately be the better team. That's just my take on it. Can the Dolphins beat the Bills? Of course. Yes. The Dolphins actually match up decent with the Bills, especially from their defensive perspective versus the Bills' offense. But I'm still going to lean towards the better quarterback, the proven team, the proven roster, the better weapons, the more explosive offense. This year in 2020, if it's proven anything, it's proven that offense is the way to go. And that's the way I'm going with this conversation. So I think the Bills win the AFC East. I think they're the best team in the AFC East. Not to say the Finns are bad, not to say the Finns won't make the playoffs. They will. But I'm just saying, I would pick the Bills over the Dolphins. The Hail Murray. All right, we got to talk about this. So I have so many issues with this. Now, of course, I'm the negative Nancy, right? So I watch this play, and my first reaction to the play is not, oh my goodness, what a throw by Kyler Murray. It's not, oh my goodness, what a catch by DeAndre Hopkins. Immediately, I am thinking, what in the blue are the Bills doing? What are they doing on defense? When I watch this play, how did this play happen? How? At every level. Mario Addison missing a sack, allowing the contain to be broken and Kyler Murray to get outside the pocket. Number 1. Number 2, what is the middle of the field? I'm talking about the linebackers and the safeties of the Bills. What are they doing? They jump a 10-yard out instead of just putting everyone in the end zone. The Cardinals don't have a timeout. They need to go 60 yards, 50, 60 yards to score a touchdown. Just back everyone up. I don't care if Kyler Murray scrambles. You're going to tackle him, okay? You have 11 players on the field. Kyler Murray's not going to scramble for 50 yards. And if he scrambles for 30, the time is going to run out. That situational football was so bad. And I don't know whether to blame it on Sean McDermott and the coaching staff because there were so many secondary players missing from the game. Like Norman wasn't playing, Wallace wasn't playing. So there was injuries, and the typical way that you would practice that situation is not with guys you pick off the street. So I don't know whether to blame it on the corners, the safeties, the players, or the coaches. Because, yes, I think the coaches should direct the players where to be in that situation, but the players got to perform and they got to know better. They got to know situational football. You're in the NFL. You cannot jump a 10-yard out route when the other team has 0 timeouts and they need to go 50 yards. You cannot allow the quarterback to pass the ball. Just let him run. Okay? Keep him in the pocket then. Don't allow him to break the pocket. That is the number one way you lose those games. That's the number one way you lose on a Hail Mary, is if the quarterback breaks the pocket and it becomes a broken play. That is the only reason the Cardinals won the game. The only reason. I just don't understand how the Bills allow that to happen. How they allow that broken play to happen. Even if you keep Kyler in the pocket and he gets the throw off, the chances of that throw actually working and happening are so slim. Because yes, there were 3 players on DeAndre Hopkins, but it's DeAndre Hopkins. You still have 5 players playing underneath coverage for no apparent reason. The reason broken plays and Hail Marys equals success is because the DBs are tracking down the football. They're having to run with the receiver after the route breaks down. The quarterback, everybody's shifting and moving. They're not in their designed spot. But if you keep the quarterback in that pocket, everybody's where they're supposed to be. They're not biting on a route. They're not biting on a fake. They're not biting on something else. They're where they're supposed to be. So to me, problem number 1, coaching, telling your players where to be. Problem number 2, defensive line not playing contain, playing conservative. Reason number 3, middle of the field jumping meaningless routes that wouldn't win them the game. Number 4, DBs not just batting the ball down versus DeAndre Hopkins. I know it sounds easier than it is, but it's 3 versus 1. Okay? I know he's Hopkins, D-Hop, but still, you got to do a better job. You got to. But credit Kyler Murray. Few quarterbacks could make that throw, could make that play. Credit DeAndre Hopkins because few receivers could make that catch. The Cardinals are a good team. Did they deserve to win that game? Absolutely not. Absolutely not. Because right before that, Josh Allen threw a dot for a touchdown. That I thought was a game-winning touchdown. But the Cardinals, they do need some respect. They are a solid team. They beat Seattle. They beat Buffalo. Okay? They're pretty good. They're pretty good. Right? They're probably a playoff team. They got a great quarterback. He's an MVP candidate. I just don't think they should have won the game. That's what frustrates me, is when I see a game and a result of a game that shouldn't have happened. Like it happens a lot in the NFL, but it's one of my biggest thing. Like a game, the last play of the game that was just a complete fluke. Because that was a complete fluke. Cardinals fans, you have the right to be happy about your team winning, but just understand that you were a bit lucky in that game. Bilo Man asks, be specific. So there was I don't have the video with me, but if you watch the play and you specifically zoom the video out, there is a receiver to the left of the field. Kyler Murray is scrambling to the left. Addison falls over. Kyler's running full speed, and he throws the ball on the sideline. There are two Bills defenders who jump a route that's probably only 15 yards in depth. So my opinion is you almost force Kyler Murray to throw that. Because, okay, right? That's a completion. He goes out of bounds. He stops the clock, but there's 5 seconds left. And now you set up your prevent defense. You have everyone in the end zone because 5 seconds, you only have one play, not 2 plays with 11 seconds left. So with 11 seconds left, you're not necessarily playing Hail Mary. 5 seconds, you are. So you can get a better defense on the field. If they complete that pass, whatever, they're not winning the game. They needed a touchdown. So that's what I'm talking about. If you watch the play, you will know what I'm talking about there. The Rams versus the Seahawks, man. This was another huge game this week in week number 10. Absolutely huge game. Russell Wilson was horrible in this game. There are going to be a lot of people making a lot of excuses, which is totally okay. And I said this last week with Wilson, with Stafford. These are guys that carry their team week in and week out. They're going to have bad games. They're going to be blamed for the loss. And they should be at certain times. Russell Wilson was the reason the Seahawks lost this game. Russell Wilson was bad. Like, legitimately, I watched at least bits and pieces of every game this week. Russell Wilson was the worst quarterback other than Drew Lock in week 10. Russell Wilson, that one play where he scrambled and then threw the ball after, like, he had a 10-yard scramble for a first down and he chucked it right into coverage. There was a number of throws where it was just bad. He's holding on to the ball, understanding he's playing Aaron Donald. He's holding on to the ball and getting sacked. I don't want to be blaming everything on the quarterback, but he truly was bad. And that game is the reason he is not going to be MVP this season. And now, all of a sudden, he's struggling to get an MVP vote, even though he was the best player in football through 9 weeks. Now, he's just slid right out of the MVP race. Because he had an atrocious game. And I talked about Russell Wilson's flaws a couple of weeks back. They all were existent in that game. Trying to make the big play when it's not there. The Rams, you have to understand, the Rams, their defense operates in such a way where they love to play that quarters, they love to play the cover 4 look. So that's going to take away a lot of the deep ball. They sit back off coverage. They don't get in your face a lot. They're very conservative because what they want to do on defense is they want to allow their pass rush with 3 or 4 to get to the quarterback because they have Aaron Donald, because they have Brockers, because they have Floyd, who had like 2 or 3 sacks. These guys can get to the quarterback on their own. So they don't need to blitz a ton. They will occasionally. But what they love to do is they love to play off coverage. And they like to force quarterbacks to throw the ball underneath and take what's there. And Russell Wilson, because he's been so successful with Tyler Lockett on a bomb, Metcalf on a bomb, he wasn't willing to live with the 5-yard play. He wasn't willing to live with the check down. And he wasn't taking it. And he was forcing passes. And when nothing was there, he wasn't throwing the ball away. He was trying to win the game when it wasn't there to be won, when he should just first not try to lose the game, which is ultimately what happened. He lost the game. The Seahawks, I understand. Their defense is so bad that Russell Wilson needs to make plays. But there was a different way of going about it than the way he went about it. Holding on the ball for 6 seconds and getting sacked isn't going to help your team. Throwing the ball into triple coverage is not going to help your team. He just seemed off. He had a bad game. And Russell Wilson, the reason he's never won MVP is because these games that he has every year stick in the minds of the fans and stick in the minds of the voters. Games that Patrick Mahomes does not have. He doesn't have these games. He doesn't go out there and throw 3 picks, right? He doesn't get sacked 5 times. Things like this that doesn't happen to Patrick Mahomes. That's why Mahomes has now put himself ahead in the MVP race because, yes, he hasn't been amazing. Like, he hasn't been incredible. He's been nowhere near his 2018 season, but he doesn't go out there and throw 3 picks. He never does that. So I think that's why people are now on the Mahomes train in the MVP race. Wilson is in a slump. He needs to get back in it because he's legitimately their only chance to make the playoffs and do anything this year. They're in a legitimate spot where they could miss the playoffs. I know that's being dramatic, but they're in a very difficult division. They have the Cardinals and the Rams who have beat them. Beat them! And are both ahead of them. The Seahawks are in 3rd in their division, I think. So they're in an actual spot where they need to start picking up wins. Every game is crucial to them. But that's not to say just that the Russell Wilson, it's not just him. There are other factors in this. There's other factors in the Seahawks, right? The Seahawks, their defense is atrocious. Like, it is an absolute disaster, and it is embarrassing. Like, it's embarrassing. I don't know what other way to put it. They are the worst pass defense maybe I've ever seen. And they have no answers. They have no answers. They're trying to justify Jamal Adams by always blitzing him all the time. They're not, I don't know if they know how to use him or like what's going on. Like, he's playing okay, but like one player doesn't change a secondary or change a defense. And they're playing the same scheme they've played for years, but they have no pass rush. It's embarrassing. I don't know what other way to put it. Their defense, we knew it's bad. But now Wilson he's not Superman. He can't make up for everything. So I don't want to be harsh on Wilson because quarterback's only one player on a football team. He can only do so much. When your defense is that awful, which is Pete Carroll's responsibility. He's a defensive coach. His defense is poop. It hasn't been good in years. They need to go back to the drawing board. I know they tried to trade for Carlos Dunlap. They trade for Jamal Adams. I don't even think it's the players. I think what they're doing is a disaster. The way they play defense is a disaster. Their scheme is a disaster. Like, everything about it is horrible. 5-man blitzes. I hate 5-man blitz. What's the point of a 5-man blitz? They're 5 offensive linemen. You're just taking somebody out of coverage when your coverage is terrible. Why don't you just put an extra guy in coverage? If you can't get to the quarterback, you rather blitz everybody or don't blitz at all. I don't understand. I don't know. Just go for it. Like, pull a Chiefs with Spagnuolo and just blitz. Like, you might as well just send 7 because you're not stopping anybody. You are not stopping anyone. I think Nick Foles could shred you right now. So, Seahawks are an absolute disaster. I don't know what other way to put it. But Wilson's been disappointing. He had a terrible game, but it's not all on Russell Wilson. That carries me to the next topic. Can the real MVP please stand up? I mean, I don't think it's Mahomes. Like, everybody's saying it's Mahomes. What has Mahomes really done that is so spectacular, like that warrants an MVP? Not trying to hate on the dude, and I understand his bar is very high, but like, so is every other great quarterback's bar super high. Like, Brady's bar is super high, Manning's bar was super high, Rodgers' bar is super high. So like, if you're going to put him in that conversation, does this warrant the MVP? It almost reminds me of those seasons of Peyton Manning where he won 2 of his MVPs basically by default because he was the best player or the most valuable player, but it wasn't really like a great season. Like, I don't remember a season like this in a very long time where by week 9 we have absolutely no, or week 10 now, we have no idea who the actual MVP is. Russell Wilson has fallen out of that conversation. Aaron Rodgers almost lost to Jacksonville, okay? Tom Brady had a disaster on Sunday Night Football. His numbers warrant a conversation, but I wouldn't give Brady the trophy because his team is very good. And, I mean, he's had a couple bad games. So, like, that's not an MVP to me. Josh Allen, he's not like number 1 or number 2 in the conference. So it's hard to give him the MVP, even though he might be the most valuable player, like in terms of his rushing and his passing. I guess you could throw Kyler along with Josh Allen for the same reasons. Like, without those two guys, their teams aren't very good. I'm going down the list. It's not Ben. Ben's been better as of late. It's not him. Can you say it's a different player? Like, it's a quarterback award. It's not a running back. I can't give a running back most valuable player. That is literally the opposite of what the running back is. They're not valuable. I've seen like 8 Seahawks running backs this year. I've seen like 15 running backs play for the Patriots this season. It's not a running back. Okay? I don't know. It's Dalvin Cook would have been the closest, but his team's only 4-5. Alvin Kamara has been great, but can we really say Alvin Kamara is the most valuable player in football? Like, I can't see that. I'm sorry, I can't. I can't give a running back the most valuable player award when everyone talks about how unvaluable the running back is. Nobody wants to pay the running back, and how that's proven. So, receivers. Okay, then you could get in the conversation, is Davante Adams MVP? Like, are you going to give a receiver? There's never been a receiver MVP. Jerry Rice didn't even win MVP. Randy Moss didn't win MVP. How can you give MVP to Davante Adams? I don't know. And Davante Adams hasn't played every game. If Davante Adams played every game, maybe. Like, Stephon Diggs has 900 yards receiving. Leads the league. Hopkins, Metcalf. But then again, like, Metcalf has Lockett. Hopkins has Kyler. Diggs has Allen. It's not Derrick Henry. Who is it? Can the real MVP please stand up? Maybe a running back. It's their year. I don't know. Maybe Kamara. A bunch of guys are saying Kamara. Sure, he's a great player. But before the season, we weren't even talking about Alvin Kamara's best running back in the league. Some people didn't even have him in the top 5. So, I don't know, guys. Like, if he wasn't on the Saints, I think, see, what's going to happen is that Kamara's case is only going to get worse, I think. Unless Breeze is out long term, and then Kamara becomes the focal point of the offense, then maybe it warrants a MVP. But, like, Michael Thomas is now there. So, like, Michael Thomas is going to take shine away from Alvin Kamara. Maybe one of these quarterbacks run away with the award. Maybe, Rodgers surges. Maybe Brady surges. Maybe Mahomes surges. I just have a problem with giving it to Mahomes right now. That's everybody's midseason MVP. I don't know. I just haven't seen like a Mahomes game yet. I think the closest I saw was the Chargers game where he was like amazing in the last like quarter. I don't know if you could just give the MVP to somebody by default because he's the best player, which Mahomes is the best player, but is he the most valuable right now? Defensive players, no chance. Okay, Defense sucks right now. Like, I have not seen worse defense in the history of football than 2020. So, no, there's no defensive player that is the MVP. So, I guess Alvin Kamara could get it. Like, I would never vote for him, but like if he were to get it based on narrative of Drew Brees being hurt down the stretch and he pops off, then maybe if the Vikings can get back in this and go like 10-6 and Dalvin Cook continues his pace, maybe, but I don't know. Like, I don't see a quarterback standing above the rest, and it's weird because I just talked about how defense has been so bad. It's weird. Who is the best in the NFC West? So we have the Rams, we have the Cardinals, we have the Seahawks. All teams are very flawed. I talked about how the Rams are probably the most balanced team in the division, and they have the best defense in the division. They don't have the best offense, though. They're probably third on that list. The coaches, I would put McVay as the top coach out of the three teams. I would say Shanahan is, but obviously they're not relevant. So I think McVay's the best coach. I think Wilson is the best quarterback, although as of late, Murray's been playing better. And the defense of the Rams is the best. So I think the Rams are the best team, but it's not by a lot. The Cardinals, you could argue right now. Obviously, we thought the Seahawks were at the beginning of the year, and that's fallen off. I just can't put the Seahawks there because their defense is so bad. Like, if their defense was bad, I'd be fine with it. Like they were maybe, I don't even want to say earlier in the season, but they've been better at points this season. Like, I'm fine with a team if their offense is great, but their defense is just bad. That's fine. Like the Packers, okay? But the Seahawks are like, their defense is so bad that it's like literally keeping them from winning games right now. The Cardinals have a bad defense, but it's not like historically bad, if you understand what I'm saying. The Rams have a pretty good defense, but no defense in the league is actually really that good. Even the Bucs, the Steelers, the Ravens, all these teams don't, like, their defense is better than the rest of the league, but it's not like really good. All of them have had bad games. So like you're basically basing the NFL in 2020 off of coach, quarterback, and like, is your defense competent? Not like good, but competent. So based on those criteria, even if the Rams have the worst quarterback, I'm going to say the Rams are slightly the best team. I want to see how they play versus the Bucs because that's a big matchup for them. That's going to give their offense a lot of issues, and Cardinals and the Seahawks will be hoping that they lose that game. But, I mean, they'll be competitive. That game will be good. So I'm looking forward to that game. The G-Men, are they the best in the East? So let's transfer our conversation from the NFC West to the NFC East. The New York Giants had an absolutely awesome win on Sunday. The New York Giants were a team that everybody counted out before the season. I'm talking about like not just in terms of the NFC East, but like just in general. Like everybody was saying they're definitely going to be one of the worst teams in the NFL. Like they have no chance of winning the division. They have no chance of making the playoffs. And in any other year, that would be the case. I think they're 3-7. But they're actually playing good football. And this is why I am going to say at this moment in time, the Giants are the best team in the NFC East. This is the reason. As I pull up their schedule, the Giants are the most consistent team in the NFC East. You look at their schedule. All right. As of late, they've beat the Eagles and they beat the Washington football team, both in their division. They actually swept Washington. They were extremely competitive with Tampa Bay, and you could argue they could have won that game at the end of it. The Eagles, they lost to by 1 point, but they dominated the game. They lost to the Cowboys with Dak by 3. They lost to the Rams by 8. They lost to the Bears by 4. They were even competitive in week 1 versus the Steelers. The only game they really lost was the 49ers game. Other than that, they've been competitive in every game they've played. You have to give credit to Joe Judge. I mean, he's done a great job, and the roster when I watch the Giants, it's not great. It's not something special. Daniel Jones is the best quarterback in the division. That might be a hot take because I know a lot of people don't like Daniel Jones, but he's playing better than Carson Wentz. He's played better than Carson Wentz in both games versus the Eagles. And their defense is the best probably in the division. It's them or Washington. I think Washington might be slightly better, but the Giants defense has played really well, really competitive. They're just a tough, grinded out football team. Daniel Jones has not turned the ball over in 2 straight weeks, which has been his biggest issue. Yeah, I just think like their consistency matched with their toughness, matched with their special teams, matched with their defense being fairly competent and having the best quarterback in the division, the Giants are the best team in this division right now. It's not the Eagles. It's not. It's the Giants. It's not Washington. It's not Dallas. Could Dallas or the Eagles win the division? 100%. Are the Eagles more talented than the Giants? 100%. Are the Cowboys more talented than the Giants? 100%. But who's been the most consistent team? The G-Men. Who's been the feistiest team from week to week? The Giants. Big Apple has the best team in the NFC least right now. And it's thanks to their new head coach, in my opinion. And I'll throw in Jason Garrett, and I'll throw in their coaching staff in general. They get this team to play every week. And Daniel Jones, whether you love him or you hate him, is a big reason for that because Daniel Jones is a balls-to-the-wall quarterback. That guy probably gets hit more than any quarterback in the league. Whether it's running the ball, passing the ball, he is tough as nails. So the Giants, I respect them because they're just tough. And they'll come and they'll play. No matter if the game's on the road, if it's at home, if it's off a bye, if it's whatever it is. Thursday, Monday, Sunday, they'll be there and they'll play. It's not going to be easy. The Eagles, we've seen them not show up. The Cowboys, we've seen them not show up every week of the year. Okay, Washington, they just suck. But the Giants, they're there every week. No matter if it's versus the Bucks or it's versus the Jags. They'll play. And they'll play hard. So that's why I'm going to put the Giants at number 1. The Bucks are back on track. Speaking of the Bucks, they're back on track. So very quickly, I just want to go over this because they had a absolutely disastrous effort on Sunday Night Football versus the Saints. So it was absolutely just tear your eyes out bad football on Sunday night. They did not show up to play versus the Saints. And this week was a big deal. It was a big deal for the Bucks, for Tom Brady, for Bruce Arians, for Byron Leftwich, who I ripped into last week. Their defense, who's been underperforming as of the last 3 games. The Bucks, their offense, I will credit Byron Leftwich, Bruce Arians, Tom Brady. A lot better this week. From a play calling perspective, from a scheme perspective, from a game plan perspective. They were a lot better in all facets, whether it was protection, to Brady better throwing the ball, to their receivers on the same page with their quarterback, to their receivers making plays, to their running backs making plays, to their play action game being efficient, to their key here, which I said was the flaw of their offense, play calling was much better. It was much more in sync. It was much more unpredictable. It was much more diverse. We saw different formations. We saw empty sets. We saw quick passing. We saw deep shots. We saw running game. We saw everything from the Bucs that you would want to see from this offense. Going forward, we're going to see a lot of 11 personnel. We're going to see AB, Godwin, Evans, 3 receivers with Gronk and Rojo. Okay? Ronald Jones is the 3rd leading rusher in the NFL. And that is only on, I guarantee you, he does not play as much as some of the elite backs in the league. Leonard Fournette has taken away from what could have been a special Ronald Jones season. I'm going to say this. Leonard Fournette is bad. He sucks. Leonard Fournette should not play on the Buccaneers. What he's good at right now is blocking, and that is it. Leonard Fournette's burst is gone, non-existent. He cannot get to the edge. He is rough to watch when you give him the ball up the gut. He's, as a receiver, very inefficient. He'll drop it, or he just doesn't make a guy miss. He doesn't make something happen with the ball in his hands. Ronald Jones is a really good runner. He is more explosive than Fournette. He has better vision than Fournette. He has way better feet than Fournette. And he makes more out of less than Fournette does. Fournette has been bad. And he was terrible yesterday. And Ronald Jones was spectacular yesterday, if you watch that game. And he's been good all year. Ronald Jones needs to play more. He does. But Gronk was great. He had a vintage Gronk play. AB made a few awesome catches. Godwin playing with 3 fingers was great. Evans looked healthy finally. And of course, Brady was good. Now, the other side I want to talk about is the defense. The defense was a little rough in the first half. They were playing a good offense. By the way, bro, Brady, the OC of the Panthers, he's getting a job real quick. He's a good coach. But the Panthers offense is really good. It's a top 10 offense in the league. The second half, they only allow 38 yards, the Bucs defense. So the Bucs defense figured something out in the second half. They need to allow their corners to play more aggressively. Something I didn't like about the Saints was how off coverage, how soft they were. And they didn't blitz enough. And I saw in the second half, they were creating pressure. They were creating mistakes of Bridgewater. And they were locking up Robbie Anderson, who's had a great season. Locking up DJ Moore in that second half. So the Bucs defense found something in the second half that they can carry forward. But I was really impressed with what I saw from the Bucs this week. They probably had the most convincing win of anybody in the NFL this week. But nobody is going to really talk about it because, they've done it before this year. And basically, if it's not versus the Saints, nobody's going to give them credit no longer. But that is the type of statement that you should have when you're supposed to be an elite team. And that's what the Bucs are. So they're back on track. They're back as definitely one of the best teams in football after a convincing win versus a team in the Panthers that, let me remind you, almost beat the Chiefs. They almost beat the Chiefs. So let's put that into perspective. All right. Next game is the Lions. I just want to quickly go over this. The Lions, I know a lot of you, unless you're a Lions fan, you don't really care. But I was watching this game. I watched football on Sunday. Reason I didn't stream, I was watching it with my one of my best friends, Brett. And we were watching all the games. And it's funny because he doesn't typically watch Lions games. But because I'm basically an adopted Lions fan, I watch every Lions game now, so I can predict what's going to happen in the game. So the Lions were winning at a point in the game, and I just want to talk about this because it's just funny, okay? The Lions were winning 24-3. I don't know, something like that. But I knew Washington was going to come back because now I'm a Lions fan, so I understand what's going to happen. So the Lions, they're winning, they're dominating. Of course, it's early in the game, but they do this every week. Bro, legitimately, the Lions could be 6-3 or 7-2, and I wouldn't bat an eye. But they've had this game every single week of the season. It's actually getting ridiculous. So, the Lions were up like 24-3. The Washington football team with Alex Smith, okay, if there's ever an example of being the Lions, it is this week. The Washington football team ties the game up with at 24-24, I think, or 27-27. Either one. Okay, 27-27, I believe it was. On that drive to tie the game, guys, there were 3 pass interference calls in a row. And literally, as this was happening, I was telling Brett, who I was watching the game with, there's going to be a pass interference. It's 3rd and 10. There's going to be a pass interference call. Like clockwork, there's a flag. And Aqib Talib's doing the commentary, and he's just like laughing. And he's like talking about, the game and DBs, and like a couple of them, of course, it's the Lions. They were atrocious, like calls, like horrible. Like, I don't know what the refs were doing. But Washington moves the ball into field position. They get a field goal. So it's tied 27-27. But it's 27-27. And any other team, this game would be over. Okay? 16 seconds left in the game. The Lions get the ball at the 20-yard line and literally get into field goal range to get a 59-yard field goal from Matt Prater. This was the most Lions game ever. They start the game looking like the best team in football. Then they look like the worst team in football, letting Washington come back and tying it on a drive where the refs screw them. And then Stafford gets the ball, and then they move it into 59-yard field goal range for Matt Prater to boot it for the game-winning kick. I mean, if you didn't see that game, I recommend you go watch the end. It was hilarious. And it was so entertaining. And this is why I like the Lions, because they're entertaining as hell. Whether they win or they lose, they're entertaining as hell. So, again, another Matthew Stafford game-winning drive that nobody is going to talk about because nobody saw it. But the guy literally had a game-winning drive in 16 seconds. I don't know how he did it. I don't know, but it happened. So, and they would have scored a touchdown too. I'm leaving out the funniest part. Cephas was running a go route and literally lost the ball in the stadium lights. It's a dome. I don't even know how this happened. Stafford put the ball on the money and Cephas lost the ball in the lights. He would have had a walk-in touchdown with like 10 seconds left. I don't know what the defense was doing, but he was wide open. And Stafford put it on the money. And Cephas was like going like this. And like you couldn't see the ball. And it missed him. So I don't know. I just need to bring that up. Anybody that didn't see that game, man, that was hilarious. But it was very entertaining. All right. And our last segment for tonight is the Week 11 sneak peek. So I just have a bunch of games that I've written down here that I do want to give you my 2 cents on before we get to week number 11. I just want to kind of talk about the slate. So these are the relevant games. I think week 11 looks to be a fantastic week. Arizona, Seattle is a huge game on Thursday Night Football. The NFC West battle, showdown, Kyler Murray, Russell Wilson trying to get back on track. And this game should be really good. I mean, Metcalf versus DeAndre Hopkins, that will be fun. So that game's going to be awesome. Definitely tune into that one. We have Tennessee, Baltimore, which is a revenge game for Baltimore coming off a loss versus New England. How do they bounce back? Where do these two teams stand in the AFC? Both are playing bad football for their standards. And Tennessee, I believe, is coming off of a Thursday game, so they have extra time to prepare for this game. Can Tennessee beat Baltimore again, or will Baltimore get revenge from that playoff game? Philadelphia, Cleveland is probably the sneaky game of the week. Cleveland needs to continue to win to pick up a playoff spot, while Philadelphia needs to win to get ahead in the NFC East. So that's a really big game. I think that will be really interesting because we have a really good rushing attack versus Fletcher Cox and those big boys up front. Green Bay, Indianapolis. This is a great matchup. I do think Indianapolis is actually favored. We have Phillip Rivers versus Aaron Rodgers. We have Frank Reich versus Matt LaFleur. We have the Indianapolis defense, which has been one of the best in football, versus Aaron Rodgers. And this is the type of scheme and defense that has given Rodgers issues in the past. So that's going to be entertaining. Kansas City and the Raiders. The Raiders beat the Chiefs already this year. So can Kansas City get revenge? This is a game coming off of a bye, I think, for Kansas City. The Raiders are on a roll, so that's an excellent AFC West game. And hey, if the Raiders win, they could be in contention to win the division. So that's a huge game. The Rams at the Bucks. This is a Monday night game. This is in Tampa Bay. This is two of the NFC Conference's finest. Tom Brady versus the team he beat in his most recent Super Bowl, Sean McVay. So this game, Aaron Donald versus the Bucks offense. So that's going to be fun. Jalen Ramsey versus probably Mike Evans or Antonio Brown, Chris Godwin. So there's a lot of good matchups in that game, and that will be probably the game of the week. But there are a lot of really good games this week that I'm super excited about. And that they're going to be tough to pick. So definitely tune in the pick show on Wednesday. That has been the bottom line, guys. I'm going to get to the comments now. We're going to have some fun conversing here over the comments. But yeah, really, really interesting week 11 going forward. But it was an extremely fascinating week 10 as well, with a ton to talk about. I covered everything that I thought I should cover there, along with a couple extra things. So if you did enjoy, make sure you do spike that like button. And don't forget to subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. It's very important that you guys do give this a like to help out the channel and allow other people to find this video. And make sure you do hit that notification bell to get updated with the latest upload on the channel. All right, so let's get to the comments and let's talk some football or whatever else you want to talk. It's late on a Monday night, I know, for a lot of you guys. So thanks for staying up with me. Thanks for watching. Even to have 67 people in here right now, that is absolutely awesome. So thank you guys for watching. And for any of you watching this in the morning or at another date, appreciate you. Thanks for being here. So Mr. Singh says, Mitch, what type of season is Goff having this year? He's having a Goff season. I think he's been fine. He's an average quarterback in my opinion. He's had some decent games. He's had some bad games. But he's Jared Goff. I don't think anything has changed his standing from this year. He's a serviceable NFL quarterback. He's not spectacular. He had a really terrible game versus the Bears and versus the Seahawks. He had a few bad games. I think he had three really bad games. And obviously Miami. But he's had some pretty good moments. Goff can really rip the ball when he is on a rhythm. He fits the system. He works with McVay well. He's a solid quarterback. I'm not the biggest fan, but I also don't hate Jared Goff. I respect him for what he is. Crow says that I hate the hell out of the Cardinals and Kyler Murray. Ultra says, I think Mahomes has a 2009 Peyton Manning year where he wins MVP because he doesn't F up and watches the other candidates eliminate themselves one by one. Wilson already has. Ultra, if you were to say somebody that could take the award from Mahomes, who would it be? Now, personally, I will give you, I think if Brady goes undefeated for the rest of the year and puts up 40 touchdowns, Brady could win the award, which is very, very possible for the 40 touchdowns. But to go undefeated, if he gets the first seed in the NFC, he'll win the award. If Rodgers does the same, he'll win the award. But that is assuming that Mahomes just plays the same the rest of the way. If Mahomes starts to get on somewhat of a run, then he might run away with the award. That could start this week versus the Raiders, because that's actually a big game. The problem with Mahomes, too, is he hasn't really played a lot of good teams. I'm going to be honest. The Chiefs have not really played a competitive schedule this year. And a lot of the games that they played some bad teams like the Panthers, the Chargers, there were some games, the Patriots without Cam, they didn't look good in those games. So that has hurt Mahomes in my mind. But I know it doesn't hurt him in a lot of other ones. Bethel says the Steelers are going to lose to Jacksonville this week and then win out the rest of the year. Also, Ben Roethlisberger is the MVP leader right now. No, I'm sorry. He's not. I know Steelers fans are going to endorse him, but I don't think so. I mean, he's good. Don't get me wrong. He's played well, but MVP, maybe if he starts to go off down the stretch and they maintain their supremacy, then possibly. Tampa says, Mitch, do you think the offensive line can be successful containing Aaron Donald? Obviously, getting Ali Marpet back would be big. I think he will be back. And if he is back, then yes, I actually do think so. I will say this. Aaron Donald has struggled versus only one person, and that's Joe Thuney of the Patriots. So Tom Brady may have some ability to understand the game plan of what they did to Aaron Donald in the Super Bowl and in the past. So I do think that Brady can bring something to the table from a game plan standpoint that might be unique for Aaron Donald. But obviously you're not going to be able to block him on every down. You just hope to block him when it counts. But yeah, Marpet is an all-pro. And Jensen, great on him for playing guard when he's a center. It would be more difficult without Ali Marpet, but if he does play, then that will give them a huge boost because he's definitely one of the best guards in the league. Ultra says, I think it would be after Rodgers or Brady because they would have similar stats. Both will have great records and both are huge names and stars and legends people will vote for. Yeah, I agree with that. Isaac's, it's a narrative, right? Isaac says Tua will get MVP when he throws 25 touchdowns and 1,200 yards versus the Bills. Interesting. Monty says, Mitch, what's the chance the Cardinals win the NFC West? I didn't know you were a Cardinals fan, Monty, but I'm going to say they have so I think the Seahawks have a 35% chance. I think the Rams have a 35% chance. I think the Cardinals, no, that math's not right. That would be 70%, so that's not right. I think the Cardinals have 40%, and I think the other two teams have 30% based on the schedules that they all face. The Rams have a really tough schedule. So even though I said the Rams might be the best team, I think they have probably the most difficult schedule. So I would say that the Cardinals probably have the highest chance, but it's not by like a significant amount. Rob says we'll see how Sean Payton's wizardry will work on Jameis Winston. Yes, Jameis Winston can win them games or lose them games. And it's going to be interesting to see if the Saints can maintain their hold in the NFC South and in the NFC. These games are very important. And with Jameis, we know that it doesn't matter who you're playing, he can lose the game for you. Like, he could play the worst team in the league, and if he throws 2 pick sixes, you're going to lose. Ultra says, why does Josh Allen get so much hate from lots of the NFL community? Because of the pre-draft analysis and because of the narrative that surrounds him that is incorrect. That is why. Opium says, Mitch, we making it. Tampa says, I hope the Raiders sweep the Chiefs, then lose to the Buccaneers the following week. Bethel says, Mitch, we heard you say the Raiders have a tough schedule. Yeah, they have a fairly tough schedule. I wouldn't say it's like ludicrous, but it's tough. Where was Metcalf, Mitch? I don't know. Wilson stunk. He didn't even try to throw him the ball. So I'm not going to say it was Ramsey or anybody else. Because it really wasn't Ramsey, because Ramsey wasn't always covering him. And Ramsey didn't really play man coverage the whole game. So, yeah, Ramsey's good, and he was a part of it. But, like, the Seahawks just, again, they had that game like they did versus the Cardinals, where they just didn't pass him the ball. Like, you need to find a way to get this guy the ball. And, you know, the Rams did a good job of scheming him out of the game by doubling him, by putting zone over top, zone underneath, by making sure they had guys in the area of where they were going to pass to him. So that's big. Isaac says that's false. Wait, that's false as winning out doesn't guarantee it because they need other teams to lose. What do you mean, Isaac? I'm confused. Tampa says, can you see Miami beating the Chiefs? No, not in a playoff game. Maybe in the regular season. Lori says the Saints have an easier schedule than the Bucs. I think so. Like, I don't know how different it is. I think they both play the Chiefs. I know both teams play the Atlanta Falcons twice. What else? Tampa played the Raiders, the Saints. What else we got here? Let me check that for you. I know statistically that's true, so I won't disagree with you. I want to see, like, from my perspective if that's true. So the Saints play the Vikings. I think the Bucs also play the Vikings, but as we know, the Vikings actually fare very well versus the Saints. Vikings look good too. What else? Did the Bucs play any other good teams? Well, I guess they play the Rams. So I would say it's fairly even because the Bucs still have their bye week. So that's like not a win or loss. That's one less game. If the Bucs beat the Rams, their schedule is the Chiefs, the Vikings, the Falcons, the Lions, the Falcons. So it's not really tough. The Saints play Atlanta twice. So Atlanta, Broncos, Atlanta. They should win those games. I think they'll lose to the Falcons once. They play at Philly, which I think is a tough game because Philly is going to have to fight to get in the playoffs. They play the Chiefs, then they play the Vikings. I think the Vikings are better than the Lions right now. And the Panthers, who the Panthers are basically in replacing the bye week. So as long as the Bucs beat the Rams, they got a chance for the division. But the Saints, because they swept the Bucs, it's going to be pretty hard. So the Saints, but the thing is, the Saints don't have Drew Brees now for like 2 to 3 weeks. So they could slip up. Like, they might lose to Atlanta when they wouldn't have with Drew Brees. Right? So it really comes down to how well Jameis Winston plays. If Jameis Winston doesn't play well, they got Atlanta, Denver, Atlanta, and then Philly. I'm expecting that Brees will at least be back by the Chiefs game. So we'll see. But it's not too different. But yeah, the Saints, slightly easier schedule. Sam says, do the Seahawks have a hard schedule? I'll take a look at for you right now. Tampa says, whose pass rush has a better chance of disrupting Brady and stopping the run? The Rams or the Chiefs? The Rams. The Rams. The Rams defense is better overall. Like I said, I think the Rams are one of the few teams that could actually give the Bucs offense some issues, but I think the Rams offense is going to have a lot of trouble with the Bucs defense this week. So I think it will actually be a game that will be an under. I think they played last year and the Bucs wrecked them, but it might be a little bit different this year. So let's take a look at the Seahawks schedule for you there. The Seahawks. So they play the Cardinals, huge game. Eagles, Giants, Jets, Washington, Rams, Niners. So they should beat the Giants, the Jets, and Washington for sure. And they should beat the Eagles. So they play the Cardinals, the Rams, the Niners. Those are the games. The divisional games. If they come out on top in the division, they could win the division. Isaac says, Mitch, I wanted to say that earlier. You said the Pats control their destiny in the playoff race, but I respectfully disagree 100%, as that means if you win out, you're in no matter what. And that's false. I mean, I guess what I'm trying to say is if New England plays as well as they played, maybe it was poorly worded. What I meant to say was if New England plays as well as they played on Sunday, they control their own destiny in the sense that if they can win the rest of their games, which is probably impossible, but if they win the rest of their games, they're 11-5. So if you're 11-5, I don't care what year it is, you're probably making the playoffs. So New England could finish 10-6, 11-5. If they do, they'll make the playoffs. I think they have a chance to make the playoffs even at 9-7 because of the potential of 8 teams in the playoffs. Even with 7 teams in the playoffs. In this tough AFC this year, though, with a lot of teams that are doing very well, it's going to be difficult. But I don't see the Browns keeping up their record. I think they're going to be a team that slides. I think the Titans are currently sliding. I think the Raiders will slide a little bit. So that will open up a window for the Patriots to have a chance. I'm not saying it's highly likely, but I'm saying there's a chance that it could happen. And when I went over the schedule, I basically said, I think they'll lose 1 or 2 games at the very least. But based on the schedule, it's not like they play the Steelers or the Chiefs or the Bucks or the Saints. Like, none of the games are unwinnable for them. They can beat any team on their schedule that's left. So that's what I meant by that. Ultra says, do you think Chicago is done? Yes. Because they have no quarterback. I feel bad for the rest of their team, but they have no quarterback and a very bad offensive line, and that is going to cost you in the NFL. So I actually think I will say this. The Bears are going to finish last in their division. Maybe they get 7-9, 6-10. Yeah, it looks like it's going to be bad. Yeah, I think they're going to finish last. I think Detroit's going to pass them, which they're almost identical right now. I think the Lions are 4-5 and the Bears are 5-5. So, and I think the Lions have an easier schedule. I could be wrong. And then the Vikings look to be playing pretty well. I wouldn't be shocked if the Bears went from being the best team in their division early in the year from a record perspective to the worst at the end of the year. Like, that would not surprise me because they have no quarterback. Isaac says, understandable, good sir. Imagine the Patriots having a 2008 PTSD. Yes, I could see that. 11-5 and missing it. Yeah. That was a year where I don't even know who the team that made it over them was. I guess Miami. But I think the Jets, they were ahead of the Jets. The Jets were like 9-7 that year, I think, with Brett Favre. That was just a really good AFC that year. Winris says, what are your thoughts on having 16 teams in the playoffs and no one getting a first round bye? To be honest, I never really was a fan of the one team bye thing. So I kind of like it, but I don't know. I don't really care either way. It does kind of suck for the team that's first because there's such a big difference between, let's say, the Chiefs, who will finish 14-2, and the Patriots, if they get in, or like the Browns, who will be like 9-7. So there's such a big difference between those teams than the Chiefs. And then in the NFC, the same thing, right? But then again, I mean, the freaking Giants could make the playoffs at 6-10. So who's to say that the 8th seed doesn't belong in the playoffs if the Giants are in at 6-10, which is probably going to be their record, or the Eagles at 6-10. Like, Bethel has the Patriots finishing 8-8, losing to the Cardinals, the Rams, and losing 2 games, which would mean they're 9-7, right? Ultra says, has the NFC being so weak allowed the Packers to be the same as last year, get the same result? Yeah, I said that in the chat. No, I truly do believe that. I think the Packers are the same team they were last year. Now, Aaron Rodgers is playing better. Devontae Adams is playing better, but everything else is the same. Aaron Jones is playing great. Offensive line is still really good. Maybe they got a little bit more in terms of the other weapons, like Tonyan coming through or Lazard coming through at times more so than last year. But their defense is probably worse than last year. Alexander's played better. But yeah, they're basically the same team. As close as you could get from one year to the next, the Packers are like the same team. They're a team that's feasting on the weak and making the playoffs based on that, and probably going to get wrecked in a playoff game. They might win one playoff game. They're probably going to get destroyed in another. Tampa says, do they have a better chance of sweeping than the Chiefs or the Steelers sweeping the Ravens? No, I don't think so. I think the Steelers have a better chance of sweeping the Ravens than the Raiders sweeping the Chiefs. Obium says, why is there going to be a guaranteed playoff spot for the NFC least? Because that's how the NFL works. Make my predictions for the playoffs. No thanks. Do you think the Cardinals have a chance of being number 1 seed? A chance, but it's slim. Rob says a potential playoff bubble will wipe out home field advantage this year. Yeah, but there is no home field advantage. Like, let's be honest. Like, other than travel, like, there is no home field advantage for these teams right now. I don't think it exists. Mark says, are the Raiders a team that is built for the playoffs? If their defense was better, I would say yes, but their defense still isn't very good. So I would say they're kind of like a team that could be competitive in one game, but I don't think they're going to win any playoff games. That's kind of how I feel about them. Like, if their offense is good, like really good, but their defense is just, I mean, it's playing better, but it's just not good enough to beat the Steelers or the Chiefs or even the Ravens, I don't think. Like, Isaac says, I don't know. I think the only weakness for Green Bay is good defense and a good running game. Tampa was that. Green Bay needs to pray for someone. I think like the Packers could like upset a Cardinals or like the NFC West and then lose the next game to like the Saints or the Bucks. I think the Rams would give them trouble, actually. I think the Packers could beat Seattle. I think they could beat the NFC East, obviously. They could beat the... Who else? I don't think they could beat the Bucks. I don't think they could beat the Saints in a playoff game. I know they beat them earlier. Maybe they upset them. I could be wrong, but like... Yeah, I just don't know with them. I just think they're good, but they're not great. I do think the Rams would give them some trouble, though. Mark says, is Derek Carr the most underrated quarterback in the NFL? No, I don't think so. I think he's fairly rated. He's a pretty good quarterback, but he's not like very good, or he's like the 14th best quarterback in the NFL. And that's kind of like where everyone ranks him. If they don't rank him there, that's unfair. Tampa says, can you see the Colts going to the Super Bowl? No, because I think Rivers will lose them one of the games in the playoffs. They could upset somebody. Like, they would actually give the Chiefs a really good game, in my opinion. But I don't think they would upset 2 teams in a row. I think they could play teams competitively because they have a good defense. They have a good coaching staff, but I think Rivers would ultimately lose them a game in the playoffs. So I don't see them going to the Super Bowl. Ultra says Green Bay can beat the Saints, not the Bucks, in my opinion. If Rodgers was absolutely on fire, then maybe they could beat the Saints, but you have to factor in the first time. I think the Saints defense will be playing better by the playoffs. I also think Michael Thomas will be playing. So those things matter to me. So, yeah, the game would be close. Don't get me wrong, but I still think I would lean towards the Saints. Ram says, as a Saints fan, I'm still waiting for that apology, the horrible prediction before the season. I didn't expect the NFC to be this bad. To be honest with you, the Rams, the only thing that is surprising about them is that their defense is playing way better than I thought. So the Rams I was off on, and I totally agree with you. I was wrong, so I will admit that. But they're not like a great team. They're good. I was wrong about their defense. I was kind of right about their offense. They're good, but they're not like as good as they were. The NFC is really bad. And the Rams have beat who they got. I mean, the NFC East, 4 wins. They beat Seattle and they beat another bad team. So like, I like them. I like what they are now, like I've been saying in this video. But if the other teams lived up to their expectations, I don't think they would be in this conversation. So, yeah, I admit it. I was wrong based on their record and how they're playing, and their defense is way better than I thought. But there are things that I said that I think are true. I don't know. Maybe you disagree with that. The NFC is really bad. Really bad. The NFL is bad, but the NFC is super bad. So yeah. Chargers Rams in the Super Bowl. I don't know. The Chargers will somehow lose a game. They always find a way. I've been saying this the last week. I think the 49ers, if they get a quarterback, like a top 15 quarterback, they're going to the Super Bowl next year. Like, I am going to bank on it that it happens. I could give you reasons why. I could maybe even make a video about it. But I think the 49ers are going to the Super Bowl again next year, but they're actually going to win this time. I'm going to put that out there right now. You could clip this if you like. Maybe I'm completely wrong. But they had the worst injury luck I have ever seen. And all they have to do is upgrade their quarterback. I'm telling you, man, Brandon Ayuk is a beast. Deebo Samuel is a monster. George Kittle is the best player at his position. They have everything it takes to get the Super Bowl except that quarterback. If they get Stafford or Ryan or Cousins, anyone like that, I think they could go to the Super Bowl. I'm not like anyone that's top average. Even if they get like Cam, let's say Cam goes there, they'll go to the Super Bowl. Because I think Cam's in that conversation too. But I don't see him leaving New England. But I'm just saying, like, if they were to get him, even if they traded up for a rookie, I wouldn't pick them to win the Super Bowl because I don't pick rookies to win the Super Bowl. But they would definitely be a really good team next year. And they're a team that I was talking about this with my friend Brett, is like, they're a team that could pull a Chiefs with Mahomes, where they like trade 2 firsts to move up to get like Fields or something like that, because they have so much talent on their team that really, I mean, they don't need all these picks. They need a quarterback. That's what they need. Offensive line's good. I mean, they could fix it a little bit, but the 49ers offensive line, kind of like the Rams, where like their scheme is so good that your offensive line can be a little bit below average. Monty says, what would make the Patriots a Super Bowl contender next year? Not a lot. 1 or 2 receivers. Looks like Myers might be a receiver you can bank on going forward. Not a number 1, but like a guy. A tight end, a receiver, and defensive line. That's it. That's it. They have picks. They have cap space. Like the most cap space. All they need legitimately in New England next year is re-sign Cam. You have the offensive line. Get a tight end. Get 2 receivers. And get like a pass rusher and a run stuffer. And that's it. You could just build from there. Like, New England would legitimately be a really, really good team with like 2 players. If they had a number 1 receiver and a pass rusher, they would be in contention for one of the best teams in the AFC. I know people are calling me crazy, but that's literally how bad those areas of their team are, that they're so bad that they hold back. Their offensive line might be the best in the league. Their coaching staff's great. Their secondary's great. They have players in the front 7 that are young and up and coming. I am extremely intrigued to see how Belichick, just as Rob says, retools the team, because he has a lot of cap space. He has picks, and he's done it before. We've seen it multiple times where he takes one offseason and he retools the team in such a way where they're right back in it. So, the Patriots are another team that I would say, just like the Niners, they have pieces in place where it wouldn't take a lot for them to be really good next year. If there are other teams like that, I could actually just take a look, because that's a really interesting conversation. I think Dallas could be a team like that. I mean, I know we always talk about Dallas this way, but if you get Dak back and you work on the defense in the offseason, They could be a team that's back in the playoffs next year. They're probably a bounce-back team. I think the Vikings, even though they're playing well right now, they could use a couple players that I think could help them, and that would be interesting. The Saints, that looks to be like they're finding a quarterback. The Bucks will be in the contention next year again. Who else? Seattle really needs to work on the defense, but they always have a chance with Russ. Who's a team that could bounce back? I think the Chargers, obviously, they get a little injury luck and they work. I think they need to get rid of the defensive coaching staff and retool the coaching staff a little bit and bring in maybe a couple players in the secondary. They're a team. Obviously, the Texans with Watson are a team, but they got a lot to work on. But those are the main ones that I see. Like, they only need like 2 or 3 players. I think the Patriots need 2 or 3 players. The Cowboys need 2 or 3 players. The Niners need 2 or 3 players. And the Chargers. And that's probably the teams that I'm looking at. Could I imagine Kirk Cousins in New Orleans? Probably not. I mean, it could happen, but like, I don't think that'd be the place he goes. I just don't think Sean Payton would sign him. I could be wrong, but I don't know. Pat's Bucks, that will be a good game, yeah. Mark is not a fan of the Niners' offensive line. Funny. Oh, yeah, the Bucks are stacked. They'll only get better next offseason, too, probably. Because they'll just sign free agents for, like, no money because they want to play with Brady for his last season. Like, imagine how many veteran guys are just going to sign with the Bucks for no money like it's the NBA because they want to play with Brady for his last year. If that's next year or the year after, like, imagine Patrick Mahomes and the Patriots. I mean, he doesn't have any receivers, so I don't know what would happen there. Imagine Patrick Mahomes handing it off to Damian Harris 20 times a game. Ultra says, will the Bengals win the division next year? Good question. I'm going to say, as of right now, my money would be on the Ravens. The Ravens are a very good, like I said earlier, very good franchise, very good GM, very good front office. They are excellent at drafting and retooling. So my money would be on the Ravens. The Bengals, I think, could make the playoffs, though. I don't know how much longer Ben's playing. Tampa says, do you think Brady had a chance in Tampa? Had a better chance on Tampa or San Francisco? I'm going to say San Francisco just because of Kyle Shanahan. But healthy San Francisco, that is. But that would have sucked for Brady if he went to San Francisco and then all his players got hurt. That would have been pretty bad. Do you think the NFC North could be the best division in football? No. They don't have any quarterbacks. Rodgers and Stafford, but Stafford might be leaving. The other teams, I mean, Minnesota is probably going to get rid of Cousins soon. And the Bears don't have a quarterback, so. The Lions, baby. Next season, winning the NFC North. What do you know? Will the Panthers go to the playoffs next year? I don't think so, but they should be good. They should be entertaining again. I like what they're doing. Maybe they will. I don't know. I need to see what they do, but I don't know if Bridgewater is like a guy that I'm willing to bank on. Aladdin says, are the Bears a playoff team? No. Mark says, when will the NFC East be good again? Probably next year, knowing the NFL. All right. I think I'm going to wrap it up there. Thanks, guys, for watching this week's Bottom Line on the channel live on a late night. If you enjoyed, Gronk spiked that like button and subscribe to the channel for more NFL. It's Mitch. Thanks for watching. Peace.